A young Kiwi falling out of love with a rental property and a high income. Now, for years, this has been the tried and true path in New Zealand. Good job, good income, progress up the ladder, earn more, be able to service more debt, build up some equity in your own home, and then get a rental property. That's basically clocking life in New Zealand. Get a good job with a good income, buy your own home, wait for enough equity in it because you're either adding value to that owner occupied property or money is devaluing and losing its value, and therefore you can then go and borrow more debt and hopefully your income is growing alongside it and you can service more debt and you can have a rental. What I've recently started to see in my role as an accountant and in the business space is that younger people are doing this path and then getting to a stage and going, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. So I've noticed an uptick in inquiries from younger people asking about buying businesses and how that works and whether that is possible, or just looking at their rentals going, is this actually what I want to do? Now, I think what part of this might be is that they realize the two vehicles that they're in, one, a job with a salary, and two, a rental property, both of them have capped incomes. And with inflation being so high over the last 4 years, people have realized, shit, I'm not really in control of my income, nor am I too in control of rents. And people will argue, yes, you can put your rents up, but you can kind of only do that in line with the market. Same with a salary. And I'm not shitting on people who buy rentals, nor are in employment. And again, yes, before someone loses their lols in the comment, no, I know that everybody can't run a business and be in control of their income, and there will always be employees. For fuck's sake, I've done business for 15 years, including accounting, and worked in the space and studied it. Like, I get it. You know, if everyone was going to be in business, they would all be doing it by now, but they're not. So the world still needs employers, employees, and this isn't for everybody. But what I do think is happening, like I said before, is some young people are starting to question what they were taught. Get a good job, get a good income, build up some equity in a property, and then go and get a rental and carry on. And then maybe get a second one, and a third one, and a fourth one, if you're really that way inclined. But that's more of a wealth building journey, which is kind of lazy. Sorry to all the property investors. I know I've just triggered you there, but if you think about it, you don't have to be too special, nor sort of know too much, nor take too much risk, because it's kind of been the tried and true thing to do. However, again, I do think that people are thinking like, shit, I can sort of see that path and it might be a bit boring for them, or they might even go down that path and go, great, I might have wealth on paper, but I've got to service all this debt. I may not even really like that, and I'm still out of control of my income. So I wonder if we might see a turn where younger people go, you know what, I don't need the rental property piece. I even spoke to a business owner yesterday who was thinking about buying another business and selling their owner-occupied property and going renting. They know that in that business they can be in more control of their income, and that's probably the vehicle that they want to be in. It's probably just the circles that I'm hanging in, but I have noticed more people questioning their rentals. Now, if we start to think about this, the median rent in New Zealand is around $600. So let's just play with that for a second and say that we get $600 of rent, and we're probably up for about 31,000 bucks for the year, right? What are our rates going to be? Maybe 3.5 grand. Maybe we'll scale all this shit back as well. Insurance, 1,500. Property management, 3 grand or 2.5. Maintenance and repairs, budgeting for $2,000 in a year. Interest on your debt, interest on the debt alone, even if you're interest only, without even paying down some of the debt, which is popular property teaching. No, just interest only. All of this stuff was all good and well with low interest rates, but I think it's been tested as interest rates have been higher. So if we borrowed, let's say, $600,000 for this rental at 5%, there's $30,000 of interest, I think. Accounting fees, $1,000 if you're using a cheap shitbox accountant, or maybe even doing it yourself, but let's just do $1,000. I've seen some of these cost 5 grand when they start setting up LTCs and all this stuff for you as well for your massive rental business that you think you're running. Body corporate, maybe 3,000. Utilities, 500. Maybe even a couple of weeks of the year that they're not there, 1,200. So your total expenses are around $45,000. Now let's just scale all of that back and go, you know what, maybe rates aren't that high, property management, we're not going to be doing that. So let's take $1,000 off of the rates. Let's get rid of the 2.5 grand of property management. So there's 3.5 grand was saved. Going to try and do your own accounting. There's 4.5 grand. No body corporate. There's 7.5 grand. Okay, cool. you're still like losing money. And we haven't factored in the repayments of the debt if you were going to repay debt on the rental to build up more equity. And then, you might say, well, actually, interest rates are going to be cheaper than that. Well, okay, great. But people don't actually run the numbers on this shit. When I do accounting and when we do tax returns for rental property owners, we do income less all of the expenses equals profit. Is there a tax on that, or is it a loss and the loss gets carried forward? And the tax rules have changed massively. In my short time in the accounting industry, I've seen depreciation be removed from rental properties. I've seen the introduction of interest deductibility, and then that's been repealed. We've also seen losses not being able to use to offset your other forms of income, and you've seen repairs be sort of tightly looked at rather than you're paying to add value to your rental property and calling it a repair, but you're really actually adding value to it, which isn't a tax deductible expense. But anyway, there's all of this sort of stuff that people don't really understand. But basically the simple teaching is get a good income and then leverage off of that income to be able to borrow more debt and then use the equity in your property to then buy a rental. But again, like it's capped. And even if that rent's high, like do these numbers. And this is what I'm starting to see is younger people that have gotten into these vehicles are going, this is shit. Like I want to earn more and I want to be in control of my income. So I do wonder if we'll see more people buying businesses or, even starting one person type businesses. Now, 500,000, I think there's 530,000 small businesses in New Zealand and around 71% of them are one person businesses. So I do wonder, are people going to look at ways that they can be in vehicles where they can be in more control of their income and they realize that the rental property thing isn't really it. It's not a good way to control your income because you're not really that in control of it. It's a good way to build wealth when we have asset prices slowly increasing and debt being created and interest rates being low. But who's to say that that's the period that we're going to be going into? So it's a fascinating thing to watch play out. And I'd love to see, what you think about it. Let us know in the comments. Again, if you know what your goals are, then you figure out whether property is a part of that and needs to go into that, and that's the way that you're going to build your wealth and your retirement and things like that. Completely sweet. That go for it. I'm not saying don't do this. I'm saying just think about some of the stuff. And even, I was reading a financial advisor recently talking about how a lot of people will get to 65 with their one rental and then realize that all their cash is still tied up in that property. And they'll go, oh, okay, well, our rent is still this. And now they might have paid off the debt and not have any interest, all good and well. But it might only give them, $20,000 for the year. Sounds great. They might have to pay tax on that as well because it's now profitable. It's just not enough they haven't done the numbers to then figure out, is that going to help them fund the lifestyle that they want? So again, with whatever you're doing in your life financially, you want to be running the numbers and thinking about the path that you're going down before making these major decisions. And I even had a business owner recently say to me about how they were going to wait to sell their property a year. I had this last year too, and I'm like, so you're going to wait a whole year for the market to get better, which it didn't in 2024, for the risk that 5% of the property value, let's say if it goes up 5%, tax free, like you're willing to wait for an entire year and not take any action on a thing that you could be doing just to wait for that 5% and basically hope for it. And the same conversation recently with a business owner, they're like, shit, I hadn't really thought about it like that. So try and challenge yourself to think critically about this stuff. New Zealand, throws the same stuff at you, good job, rental property always goes up, all that sort of stuff. There will be comments that they'll get pumped and here it's like, yeah, but property, you can use leverage. Yeah, you're the leverage with the bank. And now the bank are like, great, we'll give you more debt. You need to repay it. So now you're a debt servicing person. And all good and well, like I say, if that's what you want to do, I'm encouraging you to think about some of these things. And I'm showing you what I'm starting to see with some people that are like, I'm not in control of this income. How can I get in control of my income? And inflation, I think, has encouraged people to do that. And over the last few years as well, let's look at, rates and insurance and shit like that has gotten really expensive, as was interest. So now people, I think, are questioning investing in property and thinking about, okay, why don't I go into another vehicle that can create more income to start with, and then I can look at property later. Property, for a lot of people that really understand it, I think is a store of wealth. Some people play the property game and some people sell to the individual that has a good income and that will get a rental. And I completely get that, and I see that has worked for a lot of people over many, many decades as we've had decreasing interest rates and increasing asset prices. But you don't want to get yourself where you're trapped into a job and a debt servicing slave, let's use that word, sorry if it's offensive, of debt to the banks because someone told you that, no, like get a rental property, it's the thing to do. Maybe you're not supposed to be in that vehicle. And I think some of the true potential of this economy and in this country is currently locked in jobs and servicing debt on inefficient assets like a rental property, when those people, if they were put into a better vehicle, could be growing, increasing their income, hiring people, innovating, exporting, all sorts of shit. But they can't because someone's taught them, no, like good job, good income, rental property, do that. That's it. And so then the world doesn't actually get their potential. The world doesn't get to see, the country doesn't get to see, what they could actually do because without realizing it, they've trapped themselves in there. Something to think about. I hope that gets you thinking as well. As always, run your own race, make your own decisions and own your own decisions as well. The beauty of my role, I get to speak to thousands of people every year and I see them making these sorts of decisions and I get to sit back and have objective conversations and then I'll get to speak to financial advisors and they will advise people to get into property and they will help them go through a decision matrix to work out whether it's a good idea or not, and then they'll do it. They won't just blindly tell people like, just do this. Probably some of them probably do, but anyway, you know what I mean. There's thinking that has to go into this stuff. So be careful when you're around the family barbecues or the quick thing that you see on TikTok or something, and it's like, I started with one rental and I've got 8. Like, is that really what you want? Is that the best use of you and your life that this country needs? And I know not everybody can have the ability to do that, but some of us need to question whether we're in the vehicles that the world really needs us to be in.